Ladies and gentlemen, we officially have a series in the NBA Finals as the San Antonio Spurs have stolen Game 3 in Madison Square Garden to make the series 1 game for the Spurs and 2 for the Knicks. And even though Donald Trump shut down most of New York so that he could get a nap during this basketball game, the rest of us were locked on to what was happening on the court. There's so much to talk about because the Spurs came out with pride and executed at a very high level. And I still believe they're the better team, and I still believe they're going to win this series. But Game 3, when you're down 0-2, is all about your pride. Can you step up to the challenge, or are you going to let go of the ropes? And it's so easy for teams to do that. We see it time and time again. The Cleveland Cavaliers against the New York Knicks, when things started to get tough and they were down 0-2, they gave up. And they quit, and it was a disgusting performance. The Spurs were the exact opposite. They've come out really good in the first quarter of every single game, but they showed their energy. They showed what makes them a really impressive basketball team and showed us why they have the ability to be NBA champions, even going up against a great team in the New York Knicks. This basketball game early, Wemby was super aggressive, and it's what I've talked about after every single game in this series. Victor Wembanyama's shot selection was way too far away from the rim. He was taking contested threes, contested twos, fadeaways, just a ton of tough basketball shots. Tonight, Wemby got his butt in the paint and was shooting efficiently, making dunks, finishing alley-oops, and things that he can do that no other player can defend or do anything about. And yes, I know that it's not possible to get him down there every single play, to make those dunks, to make those alley-oops, but you still have to give me a couple of those a game to help Wemby get in his rhythm. And he finished the game of 11 of 18 from the field, and only 4 of those were three-pointers. And I love that. 18 shots, 4 of them being threes. If he can make that his shot selection, he becomes so much more dominant of a basketball player. And what we've seen throughout the playoffs is when Victor Wembanyama comes into games aggressive in the first half, the Spurs are a much better basketball team. In Game 2, Wemby only shot 4 shots in the entire first half, and that is not the recipe for success for the San Antonio Spurs. But this was a much higher scoring basketball game. It's the first time the Spurs have broken 100 all series, and it was all about late game execution. We've seen that be so important through games 1 and game 2 in particular when they had that late turnover. When Wemby missed that mid-range shot that could have won the basketball game. And, the Knicks capitalized on that with Brunson getting fouled and making a free throw in game 2. But tonight, the San Antonio Spurs executed down the stretch. And I want to start talking about this basketball game at the end, because it was a very tight game with 2:30 left. Jalen Brunson hit a crazy fadeaway, and the most important shot of the game, in my opinion, was with about 1 minute and 53 seconds left. Stephon Castle has the basketball, and he's at the kind of top of the key, but also the wing, deep 3-point range, contested with the shot clock running out, drills a huge 3-pointer to really keep the Spurs in a great spot at the end of this basketball game. We saw Mikal Bridges miss a shot, then Dylan Harper miss a shot, then OG Anunoby went to the free throw line, he made one of them. Harper missed another 3. Brunson comes back and hits a 3-point shot. And it's really, really tight. Teams going back and forth, guys making big shots, stepping up in big moments. And De'Aaron Fox, a guy who had been playing a really rough basketball game when it came to efficiency, hit a crazy mid-range 2-point shot. And that's what we've seen a ton from De'Aaron Fox in his career. Yes, he hasn't had the opportunity with the Sacramento Kings to play in big playoff games in the finals and big moments, really even the playoffs in general with the Kings, but he's won the Clutch Player of the Year award, and he's hit big shots in his career. We know he can come through in those moments. And even though he was shooting really inefficiently tonight, he was doing good things, passing the basketball, setting his team up for success. He hit a huge mid-range shot with 12 seconds left to make the Spurs feel like they were in a great spot. Then OG Anunoby, they kick it to him quickly in the corner, and he makes a crazy 3-pointer to keep the Knicks in the basketball game, to make it a 2-point game with like 10 seconds left. Then they pass the ball into Stephon Castle, who goes down, drills 2 free throws, goes up 4 with 7 seconds left. and that's all she wrote. The San Antonio Spurs executed at a very high level down the stretch. Even those 2 3-pointers that Dylan Harper missed were very good looks, and you can live with those. Dylan Harper had a little bit of an inefficient shooting night compared to what he's used to, but he still had, big moments, and you still trust him, what he's been able to do all year long. So you still trust him in those big spots. He just missed him, and that's okay. But they were getting good looks on, and making things difficult for the New York Knicks. Even though Jalen Brunson hit a tough 2 and a tough 3, OG Anunoby hit a tough 3, they were still defending at a high level and not making those frustrating mistakes that they made in Game 2 in particular in San Antonio. And that was really the difference in this basketball game. So let's go back a little bit to the beginning of this game. We saw Stephon Castle in the first half play at a really high level. And I wrote down, he had 18 points in the first half. So he came out of this game super aggressive. Wemby was aggressive. He had 15. And those 2 players in particular came to play and kept their basketball team in this game, even though they were down at halftime 57-64. But sometimes you got to weather the storm. And what we've seen in almost every game of this series, the Spurs have dominated quarter 1 and the Knicks have dominated quarter 2. And that was no different tonight. The Knicks did their flurry in the second quarter, had the lead going into halftime, and you started to wonder, are the Spurs going to let go of the ropes? Because if you go down 3-0, your season is over. All the pressure is on the San Antonio Spurs. You're on the road in a big spot in a hostile environment in Madison Square Garden. So many celebrities. Everyone's there. How will you respond? And the way that they came out in the third quarter was so huge. They executed at a high level. They hit big shots. They defended well. And they really did a lot of good things. Even in a game where, again, De'Aaron Fox finished the game, 4-14 from the field, 0-5 from 3. And Keldon Johnson, he had 7 tonight, but he's kind of had a rough series at times. And on the Knicks side, Jordan Clarkson, they played him some tonight, and he was hitting crazy shots. It really provided a spark for them off the bench. He finished with 10 points and 2 of 2 from 3. But the Spurs, the way that they were able to execute in this basketball game was so different. What we saw in the first 2 games was that the Spurs dominated the basketball game in the middle of the fourth quarter till about 2 minutes left. In both games 1 and 2, the Spurs were really, really good in that stretch of basketball. But then they kind of fell apart in the final 2 minutes of the basketball game, both games 1 and 2. That was different tonight for the Spurs. They played really well down the stretch. And going into Game 4, you have to feel really good about your momentum. Because you really, winning a basketball game, you have to believe you can do so. And the Spurs needed some confidence. I think they came into this series maybe a little overconfident to a degree. You feel like Oklahoma City Thunder, you thought that was the real NBA Finals. That was the best team in basketball. And once you got over that hump, I think to a certain degree the Spurs felt like, hey, we're going to be the NBA champs. We're going to win the NBA Finals. And when they got here, they didn't realize how much of a wagon the New York Knicks have been over the last month and a half. The Knicks hadn't lost a basketball game in like 45 days. And the Spurs finally were able to settle in, be poised down the stretch. And if you listen to Wemby's post-game on-court interview, that's what he talked about, is just no silly mistakes, being poised, being under control down the stretch of this basketball game. Because in Game 2, when he threw the ball away, he threw it to the back of Stephon Castle's back, it felt like they were a little rushed. They could have called a timeout. They're trying to press the ball up the court. They could have, taken their time, and that's not what they did. It felt like they got a little out of control. But tonight, they had so much control over this basketball game. They're making good decisions, getting great shots. Every possession down the stretch I loved from the Spurs. Even the ones that Harper missed the 3-point shot. They were making big plays. Castle hitting that big 3, hitting big free throws. We just know what that man's about. He's a guy that you would absolutely want on your basketball team. This was a very physical game. We saw early on a lot of guys falling to the ground, a lot of pushing and shoving, guys running through, each other. They trucked Jalen Brunson a couple times and just really, imposed their will, the San Antonio Spurs did in this basketball game. All in all, I can't wait to watch Game 4. Obviously, if the Knicks win that, they're going to be in a great spot in this series. But I think the Spurs have the ability to win the NBA Finals still, even though they were down 0-2. And no team has ever went down 0-2 at home and lost the series, and won the series. Excuse me. Won the series. So the Spurs will have to do something that's never been done before. But I think they have the ability to do it. We watched this team have moments where they look like a young basketball team or a team that isn't up for the challenge, and then moments where they really rise to the occasion. We saw it in Game 6 and 7 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and we saw it tonight in New York. We know they have the ability to win a big game on the road, and I think that they'll do that heading into Game 4. That's all we got for you regarding tonight's game. Appreciate y'all watching. If you love the NBA, make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. We just passed 1,400 subscribers. That's all we got for you. Sub, we're out.